Okay, well, a few things to tell you from here. You're into the area where the castle was begun to be built in 1087, and this is part of the first building. Came along here, along this way, connected over there, and there's an upper level on the part we just walked through there. 1087 town we're talking about here, the building town. It would have had a floor. Where you can see those holes in the centre wall, and a hole in the corner of the wall, some more holes behind the ivy, and the hole at that end, that's what held the floor joint into this wall here, and that was the height of the wall. And you can tell from that that the lower level wasn't very high to live in for a room. And in fact, look at this door, there's another back door there to the castle, only half the height it should be. And what actually happened here, if you'd have come here prior to 1950, you wouldn't have seen this building at all, which is rather interesting. What happened was, when they demolished the castle in 1646, the Act of Parliament, a lot of the earth, rubbish, rocks and what have you, were all dumped in this area, and they brought the level up nearly to the top of the wall. And for a long time people thought this was part of the surrounding wall, because we're coming to the second bailey now, and we're in the West Bailey, and they all thought this was a wall. Nobody had any idea there used to be a building here, and you can put time lapse again, people not passing information on. Then the Royal Society of Ancient Monuments got permission to dig here, and between 1950 and 54 they removed the earth down to this level. Whole lot, and the same on the upper level, it came quite deep there. And a lot of things were found in Green's Flat. We found a lot of skulls during the dig in this particular section. I know one man in Corfe who still has children tucked away there. And they found all sorts of things in the dig. But what they did find is this wall, and they realised it's the wall of a building. And when the experts came later on, the archaeologists, they said this must be the very first building, and they dated it in 1087. So we know where Cromwell started, when the conquest started, this was the area. And look at the wall design. If you look at that peculiar design of the wall, that is also interesting. It's how it's called herringbone, a herringbone stone walling. And we know it's a Roman type of building. The Romans used to build like that. So we looked at that and came up with some interesting information. We found out the Romans passed their expertise on to the Anglo-Saxons. This is a Norman castle, and we believe that when they decided to build, the Normans used expertise that was handed on through the Anglo-Saxons. So we believe this was really built by Anglo-Saxons under the supervision, perhaps, of the Normans. But it's certainly a Roman type of building. Then we wondered why they should build like that. Why not just build stone on top of stone? From that we found out through research that they did this because they were finding the water entering the wall, getting stuck in there, and in the winter freezing and cracking the stones, which you get from one stone on top of another. And they're only using very thin stone at that point. So they did it this way, and they thought any water that had penetrated from the top would have gone through, and it in fact drained itself away. When you look at it today, it's still in good nick, so perhaps that way of doing it is a good way, because there's not much sign of cracking there. I don't think that's what it's good going. I went into this building yard a couple of weeks ago, and in the open air, they have stacked there some roof slates, roof tiling, whatever you want to call them. And I asked the man in the yard, because they have them piled in a sort of herringbone fashion. And I said, why have you got them like they're not one on top of the other? And he said, well, we've always done it that way. I should have expected that actually. I didn't really know. So he said for someone else, and he didn't know, but he did say one thing that could seal the fate of that wall there. He said, well, the reason we do it is they're out here all year round. And in winter, if it rains, and get into a flat, it would get between them, and if the frost came, as you know, it expands, etc., it would crack, and you couldn't sell them. You can't afford not to sell them. So we do it that way because we don't drain the water all the year round. That could be possibly the same reason of this wall. We had a good one last week from a little girl in a school. She said, my father's a baker, and he bakes special herringbone loaves. I've never seen one of those before, but apparently a loaf with a herringbone design on. And when you do that, you see herringbone quite a lot even today. You can go into Marks and Spencer sometime and see jackets sort of woven in the herringbone design. It's still there today. Worth looking round it was, and you can see a herringbone there. So that's the story. The little hole there, what looks like a hole in the wall, that was the toilet. We filled one toilet, a little hole in the bottom, a wooden shaft below the top, and the waste would have come from the toilet, no water of course, down this tube to lift the trapdoor, put a ladder inside, send everything to the ground, lock the trapdoor, and then it used to be called an analogue, what's left. And that is down the room. So, 22 French noblemen. One lady, 23 men and spying charges. I don't believe put the ladder in. Another interesting story there, because that tells you, notice would have had arrow slits in what we call the windows, and they've long gone. Just where the gentleman's climbing up the wall, you can see wide open there. He does that every day at this time, so I know exactly where the block is. Now, he's there for a reason. I just say the wall's there for a reason. Why does this happen? After they came and did the demolition job at the castle, the rector of Corfe, who was called Banks, and he was related to the Banks family who got control of the castle again, he got permission. He said he wanted to go get away from it all every now and again. He wanted like a weekend retreat or a weekend cottage. So he got permission to make a home out of this little tower here and the one opposite. He lived in there during the day and slept in there. And we're into about the 1760s now. So he would have arrived and seen it exactly as we've seen it today. So he must have put a temporary roof in at the time or something. And he said, these arrow slits it's in, they're a waste of time. I can't see through them. I want better views. So all three of them, he's widened them to give himself better views in 1760. Also the fourth one, he's actually built it into a fireplace. So you've got three windows and a fireplace there. No chimney, so smoke would have wended its way into the room. Just past the entranceway, you can see an archway in the wall there. He's reported to have said, I want to sit somewhere in the evening when I'm here and watch the sunset. So he brought bricks, and that's why you see red bricks in the wall there. He took the stone out and built his own little archway so he can have the sunset. And the third thing he did, amongst many other things that he's devastated for it, he actually built a bowling green. So in 1765 there was a bowling green at this upper level here. Some records of it. He could have come up one night for a quick game at bowls with the Reverend Banks if he'd have wished, and those are the things he did here. And when those people came to do the dig, they wouldn't have known it, but when they dug in that level, they were actually digging a bowling green at first, because that's where it would have been, probably overgrown by that time. And that was the Reverend Banks, whose rector was in Corfe. So for his weekend retreat, he would have packed one bag, walked up in, he would have been here in 5 minutes, I reckon, for his weekend retreat. Let's have a look in there. Only below the beam would have had a timber running along to a wall that went across here, so it was held up by one timber. Then they ran the actual roof into the wall. Can you see where they've cut stone out of the wall coming down each side? So it was a V coming down like with the most unusual style of roof, built in the mid-1100s. The hole above the letter V is a water that goes straight through the wall, a little hole at the side. So any drainage water from the river all came down in that section and went through the wall and drained away. And there's the archway with the red bricks. You can see it there, what's left of it, and his seat there. Right, we'll go into the picture and have a look at that. Hurry, and they got it 2 years ago. All through the winter they've been working on it, putting new drains and etc. So if you do go on there, it's normally free. And if you're members, it's free all the time anyway. But I think even today it's free. They don't seem to charge until August, I don't think. The building there, that was a cafe. What the National Trust said they would do is put in some new toilets. They're putting in gents, ladies, and disabled toilets around there. They should be running to Corfe, we believe, in 3 to 4 weeks' time. They run to a place called Harman's Cross at the moment, but surely they'll come through to Corfe. They won't allow car parking at Corfe. It's so bad for cars, really. So it's only for foot passengers, a station at Corfe, but you will be able to drive on this road. You'll come to a roundabout just there, not more than a second's drive. You can see some lamp standards there and some cars going round it. instead of going straight on, go round the roundabout, down the road, and not more than a couple of seconds drive, you'll see a signpost to your left that's signposted on, A-R-N-E, or Wareham. And if you go there, it's absolutely gorgeous driving through there. It's the key. You can, first of all, let's look at how big it was originally. That's one side of it. It came down this side here, and it joined up with this wall here. This was the footings part of it here, which has been undermined and it's gone over. So that's the size of it. The main entrance is across there. We can see a little girl just appearing now. That's where you would have got on. You would have come behind these boulders, up some steps, over a bridge, and where those people are is where you would have entered it. So that's what it would have looked like. It did have a central wall, you see, that held the ground floor. And then the next floor is where the three openings are. You can see three openings, two large ones, a little one in the middle. That was the second floor. Then go a little bit further up, you see a fireplace in the wall on the left-hand side. That's where the third floor was. And you'll notice from floor to ceiling it's very high. So you can imagine the height of those rooms that they had there. Number 1 and number 2 very high, number 3 not quite as high as that. The king had his own chamber at this ground level room, and then the middle of those 3 openings there was the way into the church, and at the top was living accommodation there, and that was really the setup of the king. The other thing to tell you is how they built it, because a lot of people do ask us how they built these places, and you're talking about the late 1000s here, so they wouldn't have had our modern style of tools, so it would have been very difficult to do. But if I show you on here, if you look around the wall, you'll notice everywhere all sorts of different size holes. Well, those holes are called put log holes. And what they used to do, they'd start digging from ground level and come to a certain height, and I can pretend this book is the wall, and then when they couldn't reach any higher, they left a series of holes. And those are the ones you can see there. Then a man came along with some long piece of timber, and he pushed the timbers in the holes. So now you've got timbers sticking out of the wall, they come off there. Then another man came with some walking boards, and he put the walking boards on top of the timbers. So now you've a platform sticking out of there, a few down pieces, a ladder, a pulley with a basket on to bring the stone up, and of course the mixtures they would have used, which would have been lime mortar in those, no cement in those, it would have been a lime mortar mix, and then they were ready to do some more building, and they did that all the way to the top, keep putting platforms in. And when they'd finished, they cut the wood off, leaving wood in the hole. It's long gone now, of course, and that sealed the hole, and that's exactly how they used to build it. I made it sound simple, but that's how they used to do it. Now what I've just said there should have brought one word into your minds. I was sending vibes out as I was talking to you, buddy. Scaffolding, that's dead right. Did anybody else think of scaffolding? Because if you did, you're completely right, because scaffolding, whilst it might have been called scaffolding then, the basis of scaffolding started life in castles like this. And one interesting thing, we had a man with us a few weeks ago who works for a firm called GKN Scaffolding. And he said, you know, so I've never known that before. The word put log and put log hole are still using scaffolding terminology even today. And that's a fair, didn't know they dated back to all that time ago, so now you know where scaffolding started from. Did you ever think you'd get so much information today?
No.
It's better than any television job. I hope you've got it all down on that.
I have, yes. I just thought they'll be all such a... Keep him busy.
Keeping you on his toes.
Yes. Oh yeah. Alright, Mama.
To where the kitchens were, and this wall you sat on was part of where the kitchens came. It just had a wall, a roof over, so the kitchens were castle in this area, all fronted, and probably would have had cauldrons to cook them and whatnot. The building here, the top of that wall there, you can see two look like they've been windows at one time. And that's deliberate architecture. It was a design feature actually of the castles. At Norwich Castle, if you go there, you'll see the same design feature. So people must have been talking to one another even in the late 1000s. And it's called blind arcading. It's deliberately put there. You see a castle which is open, like an open window. It's called arcading. Still in blind arcading. That's what it's called. Now, the point I've got to do now is tell you the story on your resting. We'll continue with the tour. Now, the tour will take about 10 more minutes. That's all. We've got to go in the quay. There's about 10 minutes to go, that's all. If you want the story, rather than the 10 minutes on, so you can have 10 minutes, or I can tell you when. But if you're going to rush for car park, I suggest we continue on. What do you want to do? Just do the 10 minutes and do you want the story? Okay, all agreed?
Yes.
I know you've got to get to 10 past 4. You should be alright that day. Okay, we'll do the story. Right, now, if you'll notice at the end of that road there, you can see it's rounded slightly. And that tells you that there's been a spiral staircase there at one time. The next thing it also tells you is that Corfe Castle was built as a right-handed castle. Not many people know that. If you look in the dictionary, the word citizen, you'll learn a lot about yourself. There are always people worrying about left-handed people. We could get shut of them quietly in medieval times, we did. This we told you in this little story. Let's first of all go back now to, we're talking about Edward the Martyr. Remember at that gate, and the first sign, but I'm talking about the year 978 now, before a castle was built. The first signs of right-handedness are coming through there. And this is taken from extracts from information passed on. And what we're told here is he'd been out hunting. When he'd been out hunting, remember he's only 17 years old, he's not very, very old. He'd been out hunting, he wanted to visit his step-brother. This, of course, was called Ethelred, and he was later made King Ethelred the Unready. Okay. So, his stepmother, Queen Elfrida, who didn't like him simply because she wanted to get her real son on the throne. She liked him, where I showed you that spot. And she brought a goblet of wine with her. And the story says, in this information, he arrived on his horse, and she brought a maidservant with her. When I do this for schools, I have children asking this, but I'll not do that today. It's better with children, I'm not embarrassed children. So she arrived here, and then she took it round to his right-hand side. So he had to reach for it with his right hand. And this was done deliberate, it was a deliberate ploy this. And the reason was the right hand was always a man's sword hand. And he never went anywhere without his sword in medieval times. So she handed it to him like this. And he leant over on his horse to get it like this. And at the precise time he did, the maidservant who was round his left-hand side stabbed him in the back. And that's how he was killed. At the spot I showed you of that, he fell from the horse. His left foot was still held in the stirrup, I think you call them. The horse bolted. Remember, no castle. Got to keep telling you there'll be no castle here. And within minutes, he was dead. And that's how he was killed. There's a whole story follows this, which I'm not going to tell you today. If you see any books on Edward the Martyr and how he restored people's sight through being dropped down the well, and all sorts of funny things happen. But nevertheless, the way he was killed is the way I've told you. The next thing to tell you, you might wonder, I'll bet you've all today, as you've come here, driven on the left-hand side of the road. That originated back to life in castle. Because when you went out on your horse in a castle, you always were told to keep to the left-hand side, and if anybody came, you'd move well over, so your right hand was free for the person coming towards you, who would also be keeping to his left-hand side of the road. And if you had to have a quick sword fight, you could do that, because your right hand was Then we got coaches. Look at a coach next time you see one. You'll notice the whip is always on the right-hand side. So the man pulling the 4 horses, whatever, had the reins in his left hand. He always had there the whip. Shouldn't really use the whip on the horses or use it to defend them. And this is why today in this country, not all countries of course, but in this country, we his right on the left-hand side of the book. All dates back to horses in medieval times. Another thing that's interesting, I saw a book the other day that I bought in the National Trust shop, not for that reason, I think somebody was reading it, and it showed a Norman knight, and the Norman knight had a sort of cloak on, and the cloak was buttoned, or the clasp for it was on the right-hand shoulder, and it says underneath, the reason it was on the right-hand shoulder now is that the gap in the cloak went down here, so he could get his hand between to pull the sword from his left hand. And then it went on to say, and you might disagree on this, I'm only repeating what the book said, it went on to say that that is why today in 1995 a man buttons on the right and a lady buttons on the left. Now you know how we do it on the right hand side. Getting married in church. Those of you who have been married, I'll bet all of you stood on your wife-to-be's right-hand side. Am I right? I bet you did. If you didn't, you should be put in the right direction. And now, the reason for that is that the man was here and his wife-to-be there. He always wear a sword. And if anybody come to try to whip his wife away before they got married, he'd quickly get his sword out. And that was the way, and that's the reason why we have to get married on the right hand side. And there was so much into right-handedness that the wedding rings to the end of the 16th century went on the right hand. In the Roman Catholic religion, it continued on the right hand even after the 16th century. And I believe in Germany, even today, it's on the right hand where you put the ring. There's a bit of more information. One other thing that's interesting, if you say a hand wave like that, a normal hand wave, that meant something in medieval times. It meant, come in peace, I have no weapons to hand. And then from that, the two hands came down, and you had a handshake. And that's how it goes forward. Well, let's look at this castle in particular, the spiral staircase. The spiral staircase, because it was a right-handed castle, was built in a clockwise pattern. So, the man at the bottom, if he stood like this, he would go like this. Otherwise, I would go like that, no way up. So it's very narrow. I had a job on. A young man there would have done it all right. And only about 5 foot high. You can see that, the height there. You can tell it's not very high, just from the top to the bottom there. The width is very narrow. So, the man going up with sword in his right hand is into the centre of the spiral staircase. This is the central bit. Pretend I'm at the top, and I always used to say that the man at the top is defending it, the man at the bottom could be attacking it. You always assume that when you do it. So I'm at the top, and my right shoulder and right hand is against the outer wall, which they built with a concave sweep on it. So I would wait till the man came up, and the information was, once he was in striking distance, the man coming up, once you've ascertained he is the enemy, make sure first, of course, then sweep with the right hand and cut the throat. And that's what he used to do. But this poor man coming up, with his sword in the right hand, got the centre of it there, he could hardly move. If he went like this, he'd put him at a different, because he nearly fell down the step. Me at the top, I've got the curved wall, I could just wait as he came round, sweep, and that's what would have happened. Now, that is what is known as a right-handed castle. We've got another stairway here that brings us into being a right-handed castle. Now here the story gets prolonged. I've told you and it tells you how important it was to be right-handed. If a man was left-handed, he used to go to great trouble to bring him from being left-handed to right-handed. In fact, we found out a form of course how to become a right-handed soldier. We've actually found that in writing, and it was for left-handed people. So important to become right-handed. Those that didn't were shot at birth. Really, we've seen that. They used to be killed. We've got one little bit of information which came by a school that says we used to throw prisoners and left-handed people over the walls of castles. They used to break the neck as they went over. But there was a reason even for that, because they used to say corpses around the castle used to attract carrion crows. Carrion crows gave the impression of some sort of a plague going on. And it used to keep He always deliberately throw people over. So if you were left-handed, you have a good chance of finishing over the wall then. You'll be all right today. So that's one for the left-handed. Now let's have a look what this man did. One day, a young boy came over to me, he'd be about 12. This was just over a year ago. And he said, by the way, you're talking about right-handed castles, but you ought to tell us the full story. Because he's taking a look at it. He said, there is one left-handed. And I thought, God, this is really interesting. A left-handed castle in a mass of right-handed. We've never heard of a left-handed one before. He says, there is one. He didn't know where, so he left it about, told nobody. And then 2 weeks after that, we had a school from Warwick Garden City on a Saturday morning. And the headmaster who came with him, who had been the previous year, had a word with him who was into history. I said, have you heard of left-handed castle? He was very pompous, the bloke. He said, of course, everyone's heard of left-handed castle. There's just one in the British Isles. Great, this story's getting better and better by the minute, you say. Where is it? It's in Scotland. Now this young man who told us thought it was in Scotland, to be fair to him. Right, why is it left-handed then, and why not right-handed? He said, quite simple. He said, the owners of it, the left-handed themselves. So what they built in the left-handed, everything opposite to this castle. Great, where is it? I want to go and have a look at it. He said, if you'd have run me last night, I would have gone through the door. I've no idea. He didn't know, but he knew there was such a castle. So what we started doing then, because sometimes another gentleman when we do these tours, we started saying to people, should you go anywhere during the summer and you find this left-handed castle in Scotland, let us know. No, to say the least, the pulse back to Corfe Castle began to increase steadily from that point. And we got all sorts of pulse. And people say, one for Gory Castle came the other week. But also, so we checked them all out, but full enough, all the ones we've had so far proved to be right-handed castles. We still haven't found a left-handed castle. Until one day last year, I'm not sure the postcard, until one day last year, as we got to the point round here, just telling this story, and I just said to the story, there were 3 people just sat over there. It was a lovely warm day. It was a lovely warm day. And we just gone through his story, and the gentleman got up and went talking to the chap who comes with me sometime, and he was from Scotland. He said, don't worry anymore, I know where your left-handed castle. There is one, he said. It's called Castle Camcorder, and it's near Dorset in Scotland. And what happened was, we told the administrator here to write off and ask him to stay there. We were so sure, we told everybody, you know, this is where it was. In fact, we got that postcard sent from the person who's the administrator that dated 31st of August last year. And that is Castle Camcorder. I'll just read you a couple of lines which is rather interesting. Remember, we've started pushing this long before we got the answers back. But he said, thank you for the information you've shown us. I've been and checked all 85 stairways. He said, I'm afraid, 3 not used, so 83 is shown, so 3 are not used. He said, I've checked them all, and I find them all to be right-handed. Listen to the PS. PS. I now know why I've had so many visitors this year. They've always also been Well, I thought I should leave the country or something, and other people coming back saying, let me send us up there for you. And that's what happened. So we still don't know the left-handed castle. So again, if you should go anywhere, you find it, you've got the photograph. Somebody's going to find it sometime, we don't even know where it is. One thing we did used to think though, is the people who had this left-handed castle, like this castle which was right.
It's a hornet, it's alright.
They got on the medieval telephone and rang each other up and said, we've got 3 men down here with a left-handed. Have you got any right-handed up there? They did a sort of transfer. They could have bought and sold players, sort of killing them into similar way to that. But there you are, but the thing has now turned full circle. A few weeks ago, we had 2 men who were on a tour. And one was from the Navy, one was from the Army. They were on separate tours, not together. It all happened in a week. And both of them came over to us and said, well, by the way, it's interesting that story. We've now got a new automatic rifle in the Army and the automatic rifle in the Navy. The same one, it's called an ASA-80. He said, and would you believe it can only be used by a right-handed soldier? Now that's today, 1994, 95. So So I quickly said, what happened to that candle? A good question, both of them said at separate times. He said, well, we've got too many men in the Navy and we've got too many men in the Army, so we might offer a few demobs, or a left-handed person could be put behind a desk to work on it. So the thing has turned a vicious circle. I didn't really think about it really. But one last thought, wouldn't you have thought somebody would have thought of having a little task force in medieval times of left-handed soldiers? Because I reckon that would have done it. Not yet, we did. Right, we're going to have to be in the room I think you want to go in. They will take you in anyway. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Sharon. Well, go and get it. Big steps. Yeah. Big steps. Woo! Windy. Alright, Sam. Go. Go. There you go. Winter.
Why are you carrying a fishing net? There's a butterfly here.
Well, it's been awfully useful on the walk. I've raised it in the air when things have got lost. Do you really want me? It'll take 10 minutes to tell the story.
It's a right-handed fishing net, isn't it?
It's to get grass clippings out of my pond. And they don't sell them in the middle of Coventry. Surprising though that may seem to you. No fishing nets.
That's a Purbeck fishing net.
It is. It's just the thing I need.
There'll be millions sold now.
This room you've come into now is the what used to be the toilet block. So I didn't think you'd have wanted to come in. I'd have told you before. The church would have finished at the top now. There was then a floor. You can see the window, and then another floor about this level. And when you stand below the church was an underground hideaway place, and this area was what it was. An archway comes from behind there and would have gone to that side there, and the archway would have held the floor on that side. So the church running all the way along the top, room and toilet block. And in this toilet block here, remember the number of people on the castle, minimum 50, average about 100. And the king was here for 250, so it was always moving around the queen. In here you had two holes in the ground. That really was the full toilet system of this castle. Little wooden partition between the two. So any toilet waste which wouldn't have had water with it would have gone through a hole which is blocked up in that corner, down this wall and come out through the two holes we showed you coming up here with us then. So it must have been a place where you wouldn't have wanted to stay very long. I wouldn't have thought when you came. They used to call them garderobes. Now we think this place would have been so busy for 200 years that probably there would have been a queue nearly all the time to use the toilet. That's what we think. Also, you might have even had to chalk your name on a board saying you want to use it at 3 o'clock or something. You might have to book an appointment. Just imagine 200, well, a possible 100 people wanted to use this toilet, and only 2 of them. You can imagine what it would have been like. Nobody seemed to bother. So, 2 toilets. The place was called a garderobe. Now, garderobe is French. Garde, latrine, toilet, robe, clothing. So we're wondering why clothing. Look at this wall here. These used to have hooks all along. And at night, before people went to bed, they used to take out the clothing on, put it along this wall. And after what you wanted to put clothing, wouldn't you? You didn't put clothing, only outer clothing, just on the wall. Yet it was full of clothing. So I looked further at this, research further. We found that there was clothing in here to kill insects and live like the smell of ammonia was so strong, it was devastating. In fact, if a moth dared fly into there during the day and just come down like a lead parachute, it wouldn't stay at all. You come in the morning, pick the coat off, shaking, you can imagine a cloud of monkeys all popping on the we could kill everything inside, that what did. And just imagine walking down the passageway and passing someone in the morning and just put a coat on. It'd be wonderful, really. But nobody bothered. It was the way of life, and that's what they did. One thing we did find from this, have you got a cloakroom at home? Downstairs normally, or separate from the normal bathroom and toilet. You probably find it's got a toilet in. It should also have a wash hand basin in. And I don't bet it has cold hooks in. No, that's okay.
Yeah.
And when we looked in the books on this, we found that these cloakrooms evolved from garderooms. The whole lot comes down from garderobe, all from there. You don't put clothing in today for the same reason, I realise that, because we've got sprays and mothballs and all sorts now. But that's why they're called garderobes, because they used to put clothing up in here to kill what lived on them. One interesting thing, you see this window? Well, this would have had a narrow slit going down to it originally, but it would have been fortified. As the castle went up later, they tend to alter it slightly. But in here, they've obviously made it bigger for better views. Now, I wonder why they wanted better views in here. One lady asked me last Wednesday night as it happened, said, because there were no newspapers in those days. Could be a good answer. We're going to go across through that door there and then we're just going to fly. Castle. King Stephen built one there in 1137. Now remember in 1137 that the whole of this castle wouldn't have been built. You'd have had this built here, probably this would have, just this little area here, and the keep would have been around at that time. So he built this castle. It was called a Motte and Bailey Castle, and it was a wooden building and surrounded, if you will, by a wooden fence that they called a palisade with spikes on the top there. So where you can see that earth going round, they dug a ditch out round the side, piled the earth up at the side to form the walls, and then built the wooden building inside and surrounded it by this fence. And of course Stephen thought he could take this castle from there using bows and arrows. He must have been very misguided when you think of the walls they got here. And of course after about a month he gave it up as a bad job, packed his bags and went back to his wife where she was. The problem they had with them was that they were soon able to fire them, so quite quickly they just set the thing on light and that would have burnt it down. Cromwell though spotted it and used, as you see today, the Civil War, and he had 5 huge cannons on there, all pointed in this direction, and tried to bring the castle down. That would be during 1645 siege, but again, not much use done from it, so in the end he moved the cannons and moved them away. So if you see Bailey Castle on your ordnance survey, that's where it is. Here we've got a stairway coming down. This stairway, which would have had, we believe, a cantilever roof over at one time, which is quite unusual, would have gone down and it would have met the place where we stood and saw the fireplace in the wall down there, in the gatehouse. But there's a stairway known as King's Stairway, and what would have happened there was, it did have a wall running down on its left-hand side only. On the right-hand side, nothing at all. And that's another example of a right-handed castle. The man at the top of the steps, his right hand will be free, no wall. The man coming up who could be attacking, his right hand is against the wall. Deliberately done. One wall always tells you it's a right-handed wall. Miss your connection.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. It was lovely.
Okay, well we've come now to the the end part of the tour really. You're pleased to know that you have in fact climbed 250 feet above sea level. And that building there is a further 80 feet above where we stood now, so you've done quite a climb and you've seen a much higher building. This section here, most people that walk through Corfe Castle, if you stand here and listen, you hear them sleep. Most people hear them sitting in a chair. Look at the windows up here, the Gothic windows, and they always come back and say, see the church of Corfe Castle. Never meant to be that. This is another picture. This was built by King John, because he said, remember, the royal people lived in the right-hand side of the keep here. And when King John got in control, he said, I want my own separate palace. So he had this built in the early 1200s. And it was known as a bouillon, which you could call it a mini palace. Let's have a look what it would have taken the shape of when it was built. First of all, there was a tower there that would have gone up to the same height as that wall you can see there. So quite a high tower, and that was known as King's Tower. There's a tower at this side which was known as Queen's Tower, and the two were connected together with 3 or 4 floors of rooms and living accommodation. Because that's where the servants lived, and the royalty would have lived as well in that section there. If somebody had been captured who they reckon was worth a bit of money, they never used to put people like that into prison. They would always be in the best part of the castle because they got ransoms for them, and they had to be very well fed and watered, so they kept them in prime condition. So apart from royalty living in here, you'd have prisoners living in here as well. They used to put them in that tower there in very luxurious surrounding. The way into it was behind this wall where you went up some steps over a bridge. And when you got to the top, if you turned right, you went into this living accommodation. If you turned left, you went into a chapel because the king had his own private chapel built. And if you came straight through that door there, you came into this area above our heads, which was known as the banqueting room, where the windows are. And this is where all the feeding and what have you went on above our heads at that level. The wall used to come across there at that time. If you'd have gone through there and looked up from outside, it would have looked something like that. There you've got your roof, you've got 4 windows, because that's what there was, and these little openings, which you can see, one of them there, I believe there was 2 more on there at one time. Castles were always being altered, so drawings never tell you everything, you've got to use your own discretion. But that's what it would have looked like. And also a couple of weeks ago, there was a school here, not one we'd taken round, I would add, and the teacher was saying those stones that stick it out over the top of the windows are for hanging people on, and they're known as hanging stones. And I stopped in my tracks when I heard this, but said nothing by the way. I didn't sort of make any difference. They're not at all. They're called corbel-stones, and they're there to hold the roof up, because they would have a piece of timber resting up. You see the ones on the other side as well, all the way along, timber all the way on, and that's how they held the roof up. They're not hanging stones at all. Just shows, doesn't it? So she's still telling people that, I'm afraid to say. There you are, Gothic windows, and this building at Corfe Castle is the first building to have glass. No other buildings didn't have glass until this one here. And we're told that glass was so expensive and such poor quality that when the wind blew, they used to close the shutters at the other side to stop the wind from blowing the glass out. It was really poor quality. And some castles, we're not sure about this, used to have windows built like this, and when the king visited them, he brought the windows with him. So they had wooden shutters, and when you arrived, people would get up there and fit the windows in. And when he left to go to his next place, you know, he would go around and take the windows with him, because it was so expensive to get that. That's how they did it. Just to diverse slightly, and I'll show you this now. This, if you see this in the shop or in the castle. If you do want to buy something which is very reasonably priced, it's a nice little map inside which is getting torn through the winds of Corfe Castle. But it gives you a good, thank you, Maddie, it gives you a good idea. We've come up through there. Where the shaded bit is what it's like today, and where it's drawn over the top is what it was like when it was built. You've got a before and after situation, and this is the first bailey we stopped in. There's the well we talked about. Then this is the second bailey where the old hall was on the very first building, and now we've come into the keep. Look at the keep, what it was like, and imagine like that with fortifications on the top. So you've got roof in the middle, a walkway around it, and then fortifications there. So if a battle was going on, men would be up there keeping an eye on the thing. There you are, a good one to buy, and it's only 50 pence, so it's good value for money that. And when you finish with it, you can always colour it in if you wish with your coloured pencil. There you are, you can get that from the shop if you do.